Hello, Latin One. Back again for the second half of Review 4E. And to some of you wondering, yes, I did shave my beard. I figured since I was home alone, I could make all the bad decisions I wanted. And then I realized after the fact that I was still recording videos. So apologies. But it's going to grow back. My son actually looked at it today and said, wow, that's one way to get the white out of your beard. So nice to know that my son takes after me. So we left off last time with line 15, and I'm going to, line 16, and I'll start with that line just so there's some continuity. Again, remember to pay attention to tense, pay attention to who's doing what to whom and what they're using, and just get out your red pen. And if you've gotten this far and you haven't translated it yet, stop. Go translate it first. See how you do. It's so much better to do it without the foreknowledge, because then you can actually see how well you're doing it, and then do it with a red pen, correct it with a red pen, so you can see where the mistakes were and what you need to work on. All right, so line 16, review 4E, page 183. I was wanting to kill the king, not the scribe, responded Mucius. The king, when he heard these things, now I will let you in 2 years translate hike as this, but right now it's a neuter plural, not a feminine accusative singular, or in this case it would be nominative singular. So I'm going to insist that you say when he heard these things, not when he heard this. Later on you'll translate them as a singular. When he heard these things, he was angry, and he ordered the soldiers to punish Mucius. Mucius proudly responded. Now, proudly works, but I actually think haughtily kind of works better, Haughtlily. I think that works better in a lot of ways because he's kind of like, standing up for himself, and with what he's about to say is more than just proud. There's an arrogance to it, okay, which was very Roman. So Mucius proudly responded, I am a Roman citizen. They call me Gaius Mucius. Which I love that line. They call me Gaius Mucius. It reminds me of when I was your age and we would go to diners on Friday or Saturday nights to stay out of home longer, and they would always be very busy, and they'd ask what our name was, and I'd always offer the name Peaches, because most of my friends were actually bigger than I was, and we'd all stand up when they called out Peaches. Peaches, party of five, and we'd all stand up with, yeah. So, they call me Peaches. Always reminds me of that. Anyway, they call me Gaius Mucius. I entered the camps because I was having in mind to save the city Rome. You caught me, but I do not fear punishments. And poenas is another one of those words that always exists in the plural. So right now translated as plural, but in a couple years you'll get to translate it as singular. At that very moment, or at that time itself, Mucius was standing next to an altar and a fire. Suddenly, he thrust his right hand into the fire. Now, in Yake, it is interesting. It's yakio yakro with a preposition in front of it. So when you throw something in, you could say that you're thrusting. If you're throwing something at, that's konikio, that would be more like hurling. There's a lot of verbs that deal with yakio yakro. But if you turn that I into a J, you see where we get inject. Okay, so he thrusted his hand, and I'm saying it in the plural or in the perfect. He thrusted his hand. Really, it's just thrust. It's kind of like the word fit into the fire. Immediately, the king got up and ordered the soldiers to drag the man away from the fire, because this is weird, right? So a guy tried to kill you, killed your secretary. Everybody catches him. And they say, why'd you kill our secretary? And he says, I meant to kill that guy. And he points right to you. And then you say, oh, well, we're going to punish you. And you're like, and he says, I don't care. Here's the hand that failed me. And he puts it in the fire and burns it off. At this point, you're pretty well spooked. And so you're about to see what happens. In other editions of this story, because you're in level 1, so it's adapted, at some point, Mucius says, there are like 300 more of me in the city waiting to take my place, and one of us will get you. Really scary stuff. He says, although you are an enemy, He is the king, by the way. Although you are an enemy, I send you back to your citizens now because you are a very brave man. Now that's the level 1 version. In reality, he's like, this dude's scary. We're getting out of here. Because if this guy's the average Roman citizen, we're all in trouble. Okay. Afterwards, Mucius returned to Rome and told after Mucius returned to Rome, he told the whole story. The citizens not only were praising Mucius, but because now he only had a left hand, he only was having a left hand, they called him Scaevola. Scaevola is Latin for lefty. So Romans are real big on just naming you for what you got, right? They're like a 1950s gang of ruffians. So they name you for like the first physical thing they see. But yes, they called him Lefty. And that's the story of Mucius. He's my favorite character. If we were in person, I'd be able to tell you a lot more about him. But he's my favorite character just because he's so crazy. He straight up like admits his mistake as, oh, I meant to do a thing that was worse to you. And then he fires his hand. Like, you can't make me quit. I fire it. And that scares the king into taking his whole army and leaving, by the way, because they don't want to mess with how crazy the Romans can be. Anyway, so there's your translation. If you want to, double check and redo the read and stuff like that, that's cool. If you want to just type it up and send it to me, that's also fine. I can give you feedback there. But I really strongly recommend you correct it first based on what you've heard here. And then the next time I talk to you, it will probably be to give you a lesson on the future tense. And then also the pluperfect tense. They're both really fun. I promise you, it's going to seem a little top heavy at first, but it's going to be just fine. Anyway, I'm going to hit the button now.